Hey everybody, welcome back to One Seed, One World. So today I wanted to go over basically Epsom salts and separating the facts and fictions on how it may work or may not work in your garden. So let's get right into it. So first off, what are Epsom salts? Epsom salts is basically magnesium sulfate. It's made up of magnesium, sulfur, and oxygen. It's nothing like table salt, completely different compound. It was probably named Epsom salt because it was discovered in Epsom, England, and the granules of Epsom salt look just like salt, but it's a different compound than what you would get in table salt, and you wouldn't want to eat it. So when people ask questions like in Facebook gardening groups or on other gardening forums, especially when it comes to tomato plants, a lot of times the different issues that they are having, they'll ask for some sort of solution to fix that issue. And invariably what you're going to see is several responses that are always going to recommend Epsom salts in different levels. A couple tablespoons here, putting rings around your plants, whatever it may be. So today we will cover a couple of those different issues and whether Epsom salts will help or will make things worse. So let's look at a couple of these different things. The biggest one probably that it comes up a lot with is blossom end rot. Will blossom end rot be solved by using Epsom salts when you plant your tomatoes or adding some later after your plants are in? The answer is no. Epsom salts don't contain any calcium. And calcium is the issue that causes blossom end rot. It's either a deficiency in the soil, which is rare, but more likely it's a problem with uptake of the calcium into the tomato plant. And having issues with that can be caused by too much water, too little water, really weird watering schedule where you're getting a lot, then nothing, then a lot, that kind of thing. And it can also be caused by low temperatures. When your tomato plants are out underneath 50 degrees Fahrenheit, that can cause blossom end rot as well. So magnesium sulfate, or Epsom salts, is not going to do anything for that. In fact, magnesium sulfate competes with calcium for uptake into your tomato plants. So by adding a bunch of Epsom salts to your garden soil around a tomato plant can actually make your blossom end rot worse. So I would call that one fiction. Number 2, getting sweeter tomatoes. That Epsom salts will make your tomatoes sweeter. Is this fact or fiction? Well, it's kind of iffy there. So as I mentioned, Epsom salts do contain magnesium and sulfur, which are the two of the micronutrients that your tomatoes need to be happy and healthy and grow full, nice, big, sweet, juicy tomatoes. So, can it help? Yes, but only if your soil already has a deficiency in those two micronutrients, which is a very rare thing. So just adding Epsom salts around your tomato plant or while you're planting more than likely isn't going to do anything because those nutrients are probably already there. And there's always some person that will say, well, my grandmother always added Epsom salt around her tomatoes and she grew the sweetest tomatoes that I've ever had. My point would be that there was probably other environmental factors affecting grandma's tomatoes, that she already had some really good soil, probably good growing, weather. There's a lot of things that can affect that so that the plants do very well, and it's not necessarily attributed to adding Epsom salts. So can it help grow sweeter tomatoes? Yes, but only if there's a deficiency in those two micronutrients in the soil. Number 3, adding Epsom salts to your tomato plant or to the soil around your tomato plants will help if your tomato plants have yellowing leaves. Fact or fiction? So, again, this is a maybe. Yellowing leaves on tomato plants can be caused by a magnesium deficiency. So, if your soil is deficient in magnesium, then adding Epsom salt can help correct that problem. But again, only if your soil is deficient in magnesium, which is pretty rare for most gardens. And also, yellowing leaves can be caused by other things. There's different diseases that can affect it. It can be a watering issue, things like root rot. There's a lot of things that can start turning your leaves yellow on tomatoes. And most likely, it's probably not a magnesium deficiency. So adding it could help, but it would be very rare, only if you had that deficiency. All right, number 4 is the final one, and that is Epsom salts will help with pest control. It'll keep the bugs away, it'll keep the slugs away, it'll protect your plants. So, is this true? Not so much. This is another that's mostly fiction. There has not been extensive studies on it. So to be fair, there's not extensive studies on pest control and Epsom salts. However, there are some. Washington University had done some studies on using Epsom salts to fight against things like beetles, certain types of worms, caterpillar pests, and in their test, Epsom salt didn't prevent any of those. Bugs could care less. They still were there and ate the plants. So the next thing that some people say that it will help with is preventing slugs, and they'll put like a ring of Epsom salt around their tomato plants, keep slugs away. Now that's possible. So whether it's table salt or Epsom salt, slugs aren't a big fan. I mean, if you dump a bunch of table salt on a slug, it'll kill it pretty instantly, or pretty close to instantly, because Epsom salts or salts make abrasions on the skin of the slug, and it causes them to dehydrate very quickly, and then they die. However, it does take a lot of salt. So putting a ring around your plant could help. If the slug crawls through it, they might avoid crawling through it. But if they do crawl through it, it could eventually kill them off if they got enough on their skins, or it might just wound them. But they might still get through and eat your plant anyway. And then now you've got like this big ring of Epsom salt around your plant that could cause issues with competing with the calcium to come up to your plant and cause blossom end rot. So can it help? Maybe it could help maybe with slugs, but that's probably it. And even then, you might be causing issues in other areas. You got rid of the slugs, but now all your tomatoes have blossom end rot. So, there's probably better ways to fight the slugs than Epsom salts. So, final summary is that Epsom salts do contain 2 of the micronutrients that your tomato plants and other plants need. There's a lot of other ones that they need as well, but they are micronutrients, and your plants only need a very minimal amount of these things to remain happy and healthy. They need much more things like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium than they do the other micronutrients like magnesium and sulfur. So while Epsom salts do contain a couple of these things, most likely your soil isn't deficient in it anyway, and in a lot of cases you can cause more harm than good by adding Epsom salts to your soil. But you do you. Maybe you've already been doing it for 30 or 40 years and never had an issue, and it's always worked for you, and then keep doing that. But just understand some of the science behind it, where some of this stuff came from. A lot of it's garden folklore, anecdotal evidence that someone put it around and they had a great season, but more than likely there was other environmental factors that actually affected the happiness and healthiness of their tomatoes that probably was not affected or brought on by the Epsom salt. So thanks for hanging out again with me today. I hope whatever's going on in your neck of the woods, in your gardens and greenhouses and whatever it is that you're doing, I hope that it's coming out fantastic for you and that you're having already a great growing season in 2023. But thanks for hanging out again with me today, and we will see you again soon. Namaste.